Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Let's go ahead and fire away with questions. Anything goes. You can unmute yourself or type in, and it could be about classes, could be about conditions, people you're treating. Anything goes.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello to Samantha. Hello to Greg. Hello, everybody.
Hey, thanks. We're going to multitask here. Thanks for sending us the emails about the couple people that we're treating for with Astara. Thanks for the follow.
Yeah, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to be of service. I agree. But thank you for all that. I spoke with an Astarian today, matter of fact, who had received a card from you. And she said, I reread that card and she said, it made me so happy and reminded me an Astarian never walks alone.
Yeah.
So there's lots of gratitude and appreciation for everybody who's involved with all of Astara's, the prayer petitions we're going to be praying for in a little while.
Yeah.
The reason I've got my hand up there really quick and turned on my sound was we have an Astarian that has vertigo. And I know I have learned, you have talked about it before, but I couldn't find it again. When you refer,
the issue with vertigo, there's lots of explanations, a lot of things that they say, and a lot of times when you look at it from the point of view of symptoms, people will say, well, it's this or it's that, but a lot of these things overlap. And so sometimes they'll say it's the thing with the inner ear, sometimes it's the muscles in the neck, sometimes it can be the Ming Men, which is your low back area opposite your navel on the backside, which shoots energy up but can make you a little ungrounded sometimes. All of it is tied to some of the same mechanisms, and one of the best ways to treat vertigo actually is hyssop, and no particular pattern, just lots of inhalations with the hyssop. And it's for several reasons. Like, so for one, you're deepening your breath, you're starting to, if there's an emotional component to it, the hyssop activates the heart and the crown, which helps to flush out some of the lower emotions. But it usually is more the muscles in the neck start to throw off the inner ear, and it can cause the vertigo. And so it relaxes the diaphragm, it relaxes the muscles in the neck, it deepens the breath. But also on a deeper level, one of the things that the hyssop does is it stimulates the function of the medulla oblongata. And the medulla oblongata is tied to like respiratory function, circulatory function, and some of your cardiac functions. And so sometimes because of stress or that Ming Men overactivating and shooting energy up, sometimes that will get so much stress energy like stuck in it that it will not like function properly, and it can throw off the respiratory rate, make the respiratory rate a little bit like weakened or unstable. And if somebody has like a weakened respiratory rate, something like thyme or cinnamon is very good for that. But I would actually relax the muscles in the neck, specifically the sternocleidomastoid, which just inhaling hyssop starts to do. Right. And then and it also relaxes the diaphragm. It takes some of the tension out of the spine. I mean, it's one of those great things in this particular case, because you don't have to really diagnose, like, is it this, is it that, where there's some things where you have to go, God, depending on what it is, it's a different treatment. This one just nails it all. And so, there might be some areas where there could be something a little bit better for it, but sometimes I'll even take, in fact, I was doing it earlier today, is I'll take several drops of hyssop and rub it right on that little indentation at the base of the skull. And it's to help stimulate the medulla and kind of clean it up a little bit. And like I like to do a thing where I either rub like vetiver along the base of the skull, or Palo Santo fruit to kind of loosen up that plantar fascia on the back of your neck. It kind of helps keep your neck loose, and it it takes like the tension out of your head is like the best way I could describe it. You know how like sometimes it's not even like tension, but like your head feels like there's too much energy stuck in a little space or something, you know, you just feel like kind of, you know, not foggy brained, but it just feels like there's just too much of something in there, right? And so by doing that, it opens all the energy channels up and just allows for things to move appropriately, and it allows you to like think clearer. And so, you know, I don't do it all the time unless I'm having an issue, but from time to time, I just rub some vetiver or some Palo Santo fruit on there. And the reason why I'm using Palo Santo fruit is it's really good for releasing fascia. So you could also use like pepper supreme, you could also use fascial release. Actually, poplar balsam would work too, it's just expensive. So, you know, go for the cheap stuff. I rub it on the spot and it works good. And then from time to time, doing the inhalations with the hyssop or rubbing it on that spot. You know, in really extreme cases, I'll go through and then have them inhale and keep their awareness on the medulla area. That technique is a way to flush. It doesn't flush like emotions out of your emotional body, but it flushes emotions out of your like your aura. Like not so much the chakras, but the aura. So, you know, say you've been in situations where, you know, you've been around a bunch of people who are being emotional towards you, or maybe you got worked up about something, but it's past. Some of that's still lingering in your field. And so to use hyssop and then keep your awareness on the base of the skull is a way to flush that out substantially. And so, you know, how every week with the Sound of Fun healing technique, every week we're doing like kind of going deep with one of the oils on one of the layers. When we get to the Solomon's hyssop, we're going to be doing that same thing where we do the base of the skull medulla area and then cut it down the spine, and it's a way to rapidly clean the energy body very, very quickly. And you know, stress, tension, emotions, all of that stuff gets stuck in the spine and the medulla. And so, you know, and the vagus nerve comes out of the medulla. So, you know, there you're starting to look at the cardiac function, you're looking at respiratory function and down into the digestive tract. And so, you know, keeping all of that healthy has a big impact on your overall health. So yeah,
Well,
like I just have her inhale the hyssop.
well, she did. We did. She had me purchase some for her, but she had smelled my Gilead and she loved it. So she
Oh,
needed
yeah.
a big bottle of the Gilead.
Good
So
for her.
yes, she now has the hyssop but she really likes the Gilead. So we also got her a roll-on ball.
Oh,
So
nice.
you probably get her a roll-on ball of the hyssop to do the back of the neck. Would you do decumbents?
Yeah,
Or
you could. Yeah.
which
And
hyssop?
is it on the
Which
site or do?
I don't even think we have.
You know, I don't know that we have it, but we will put it on tonight. Like we'll put a hyssop roller ball on there because I think that's a brilliant idea. Like honestly, I don't know why I hadn't thought of it. So I've been like, even here I'm at home with the roller balls that I could make it, and I'm putting it on my fingers and rubbing it back there. Like
Yeah.
a roller ball would be so much easier.
Just easier. So may
Yeah.
I ask which of the hyssops would you put
Doesn't
in the
matter.
roller ball? Doesn't matter.
The only one that I probably for this application that I wouldn't do is the decumbens.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, it would work. It's just that, no, I take that back. I'm thinking mostly about the medulla part. Deepening the breath, the decumbens would be fine. But stimulating the medulla, the way that I was just talking about, the decumbens kind of works, but regular hyssop, so any of them would work. You know, any of the single hyssops, like Croatian, Bulgarian, Spanish, you know.
I think you're out of the Bulgarian. She wanted me to order that one for her. And every time I go to the site, it was like a blank spot there, like you were out of the Bulgarian.
Good
So
to
I
know.
did buy the Croatian for
It's
her.
possible. Like they're not always they're not always available year round. And
Okay.
sometimes if we run out, sometimes I can't get it for a few months. So I'll have to look into that. That's very,
Okay.
very possible. Yeah.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I got lots of notes and I
Yeah.
can watch the
I know we
review.
have Spanish. I know we have Croatian.
Yes.
And
So does she now too.
yeah. Yeah.
Good. Now I'll get a rollerball. Thank you, thank you, thank you
You're
for
so
all you
welcome.
guys do. Thank you very much.
And then go ahead, Chris, then Catherine.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Greg.
Hey.
This is going to be boy Chris today.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
Hey, Chris.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. How's that hip of yours?
Oh, the hip is really, really well. We're progressing phenomenally well and getting back to being able to do some normal activities now.
And it's been what, 3 or 4 months?
4 March 16th was the surgery.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving right along.
Boy, good.
So thank you for asking. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
All your guidance on taking care of that hip. So this question is actually in regards to my mom and just
Okay.
a caveat here. I have very limited kind of information on the condition.
Sure.
So she's 93 years old.
Okay.
She lives on the other side of the country,
Okay.
but she has a condition that she's been dealing with for about the last 2 years, and she refers to it as weeping legs. So the skin on her, I'm assuming it's her shins, is thin, and she's getting a clear, viscous,
Yeah.
and a sticky liquid.
It's called weeping eczema, and there is, I think it's juniper, but let me double check. Yeah, juniper. You could put it on neat, or you could put it on with like maybe a little bit of oil. Honestly, at first I would probably put it on neat.
Okay.
Neat, and then carrier.
So put it on neat, and then after
And,
X
and
amount of
then
time.
like when
with
it
the-
starts to calm down, like if she feels uncomfortable with that, put it in like a little tiny bit of massage oil, but not even very much. Like, like half a teaspoonful, and then like 6-8 drops, and then rub the hand together, and then rub it on the area. Let it be kind of strong for that, because you want to clear that up. As it stops weeping, I would switch over then to like Kunzia. But when it starts weeping like that, juniper has been the thing that I've used that seems to knock it out.
Okay. And
Yeah.
sorry, what was the carrier that you recommended? Thanks to our
Just
wonderful
any
talk?
sort of massage oil, like
Massage oil.
like sesame oil, or I like sesame just because it's a little bit of a lymphatic stimulant, but I mean, anything will work. Like if you want to use coconut oil or almond oil, or anything that's like cosmetic grade, because the difference between that and, for example, like you could go and buy grapeseed oil at the grocery store, and then you could buy grapeseed oil at the health food store. The cosmetic grade has been filtered substantially more, so it doesn't have the little particles in it, which can potentially like clog pores and things, but it's what gives the food flavor, right? So for cooking, you want it like less filtered, but for the skin, you want it to be substantially filtered. And so just any sort of carrier oil that she has, and if not like jojoba, sesame, almond, coconut, any of those would work.
Okay. And is there a number for the first week or X amount of time, how many applications per day?
I
and
would
then-
probably do it 3 times a day. Like I would just try to knock that out right off the bat. Because like you said, like the skin is real thin, and the tendency is that like if there's a skin rash or something, there's a greater tendency to like scratch. And when the skin starts getting thinner, it becomes easier to break the skin and then start to cause like little, abrasions or little like cuts or something. And so when there's something that's itchy or weeping like that, like you said, on somebody that's of her age, I try to knock it out as fast as possible.
Okay. Because when I was talking with her yesterday, she said that they had come and bandaged her leg. I believe it's just the right one. And they've done this in the past. And this time they put the bandages on, you know, no ointment or anything else. So with gauze, they wrap it with gauze and then just secure it like with an ace bandage for
Yeah.
some support. So I guess I could ask her, you know, if they take the bandage off to see if
Right.
for
Some
about
of
leave
that
it
is
for
to
about a
keep-
week and have her try the juniper and see if that
Yeah.
works.
Some of that is to keep her from scratching it.
Right. Or
Yeah.
getting caught on something. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's just a clear, kind of a clearish kind of fluid that comes out.
That's what she said. I asked her
Yeah.
a couple times for clarification yesterday when I was
Yeah.
talking with her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a medical term for it, but you know, we just call it weeping eczema, you know, in medical aromatherapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there
And so that treatment that we're talking about, like using juniper, that actually came from a physician in France that turned me on to that. And so, you know, a lot of times when the medical aromatherapists in France, most times they're physicians. And so they've seen it, they've treated it, they've done follow-ups or they've done testing. And so when I get information like that, I take it as like, you know, that's basically an anecdotal information coming from a physician. Most times it's pretty solid and works. And so the times that I've used it, it's worked. I think there was 1 or 2 times where it didn't, but you know, 20 other times it did. So
okay. And is there a pranic healing protocol you would suggest to do long distance
like
on her?
with eczema, I can't remember what it is for eczema, but I want to say,
There's a protocol for eczema.
Yeah.
I think there's a protocol for eczema. Like it's real simple. Like, you know, always clean up the basic and then sweep the area. It might be like red and orange or something, but I'd have to look it up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We
Yeah.
can do that also.
Yeah.
We can do that. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much for
You're so welcome. Hey, good hearing from you.
your
man.
wisdom. All right. Thank you. You too.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Catherine, then Ralph.
Hey, Catherine.
Let's get you unmuted. There you go.
There, how about that? Can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Excellent.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. Just thank you so much for everything. I mean, it's such,
Oh, you're so
you
sweet.
know, there
Yeah.
are a lot of us on all of these calls, but I think we all want to be able to say that.
Thank you.
So a couple simple questions
Uh-huh.
and one that's a little bit longer. The
Okay.
first simple one is sunburn. So
So that's
without-
straightforward. Lavender, and a lot of times what I do with sunburn is lavender, and I mix it with some aloe vera.
okay.
You know, like just take some, like you know how like you can buy the aloe vera that's like 99 or 95% pure. Like squirt some in like a little cup, and then put a bunch of drops of lavender in it, and then just stir it up, and then just start rubbing it on the area. I mean, it literally will start taking the sting out within like a few minutes.
Oh, that's perfect. Because I tried, what did I try? Helichrysum in witch hazel, and it didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the other times, like if it's like a more severe kind of burn, you can use like the dark blue oils, like dark tansy or German chamomile, yarrow, things like that. But honestly, I don't know that they work any better than lavender,
Okay, perfect.
and they're a bit more expensive, and they're a lot more messy to deal with. You know what I mean? Because the blue starts getting everywhere. Where lavender, you could just put it even on an area straight, and it will start taking the sting out. And I mean, it's kind of bizarre. Like if you put it on an area and you sit there and watch it, you literally can watch the redness starting to fade away.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
That easy answer. So I have 3 oils that I have roller balls for that I just like a little bit of information about how to use them.
Sure.
So the 3 are Fir Supreme, Siberian
nice.
Fir Premium, and Cedar Trio.
Okay, so the Siberian fir and the cedar trio are in the Sandokan healing technique class.
Yep.
And so we're kind of using those to help kind of shift the energy body and like the points of perception for a person. The cedar and the cedar trio is like all the fancy cedars, like the Japanese, the Taiwanese, and the Himalayan. and cedar is really good energetically for mixing the energy of the heart and the crown. Cedar by itself is also a very good like venous tonic. It's good for lymphatic function. It's good for joints. It's good for muscular issues, fluid retention, things like that. But like using it in a roller ball, I'd start to use it probably a little bit more energetic. And then going to the Siberian fir.
The Fir Supreme.
Yeah. And you had Siberian Fir Premium as well?
Yeah, I thought that's
Okay.
the one you said already.
No, that was for cedar.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, cedar.
I thought there was both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so any of the firs are super activating to the heart. They're super activating to the heart. They help with integration. They also help with transmutation. With the Siberian fir, again, we're using that on the heart and on the temples to help be able to activate the heart, which has a cleansing effect on the solar plexus and like the lower emotions. And by putting a little bit up here on the temples, it helps to shift the prefrontal cortex a little bit. And so the Fir Supreme is kind of the same idea with some of the firs, but it's because it has all the different firs in it. It's usually when it's a Supreme, it's 3 or 4 times more potent than the single oil by itself, because you're taking firs from different regions and you're giving it like a more full spectrum approach to the plant. You know, the thing is when plants grow in a region, they have properties that the plant has, but they're also influenced by their environment. And so sometimes they're a little bit better at one thing and maybe not as good as something else, depending on the environment, the weather, the altitude, and the other plants that are growing around it, the soil. And so when we do Supremes, we're taking plants from a whole bunch of different regions and then we blend it together to give you like a full spectrum version of that. And so again, things with fir, you could say this about all 3 of them, cedar, fir, Fir Supreme, is they're all very fortifying to the body. They're very fortifying to the nervous system. They're strengthening. They kind of give you some internal strength, like in times of difficulty, but it's not something that like necessarily pulls you out of crisis, but it helps you like deal with the crisis. You know, if that makes sense. Like if you use it on a regular basis, you'll notice that like when difficult times come, you're not quite as reactive as possible. And so firs are very activating to the heart and spruces are very activating to the crown. And so it's not an accident that those are the 2 trees that get used a lot of times for Christmas. You know, they're very activating to the heart and crown. So they are used in spiritual practices to activate these centers and also to fortify the body as spiritual energy comes in. Because one of the issues that happens when spiritual energy comes in is it's not so much like depleting to the nervous system, but the nervous system is having to shift so much that sometimes you have to fortify the nerves because you'll start getting a little shaky sometimes. Like if you do like a lot of intense meditation or a lot of intense ceremony or something like that, or even have just shifted something very intensely emotionally, you'll notice that you'll start to like from time to time, you'll get like a little quiver. You sit down to meditation, the body starts to quiver a little bit. That is the nerves are a bit depleted and they need to be like fortified somewhat. And so a good safe way to do it is to use things that are evergreen or things that are real resinous, like, you know, going back fir, spruce, you know, cedars would still work, but I usually go fir or spruce with that. You could even kind of go cypress a bit, but the other ones would be frankincense, myrrh, opopanox, elemi, you know, things that are resinous. Even mastic. Mastic would even make the cut on that one.
And then what about Sylvester pine?
Sylvester pine, lots of different things with that. So let's talk first energetically and also emotionally. So one of the things with pine is it's very good about integrating something into the heart. Like anytime you really want to get something into the heart, be it, you know, a difficult feeling, a difficult situation, or even doing a spiritual practice where you're trying to do like a devotional practice to a deity or spiritual teacher, the pine helps to get that into the heart to a higher degree. Then you look at like muscular aches and pains, joint issues, arthritic conditions, all very good for that. Pine applied to the chest also takes some of the tension out of the heart muscle. Like sometimes, you know, a person might not be having like it's not pain in the chest, but sometimes like the heart muscle will ache a little bit. It's like the pH is off with the heart muscle. And if you just put a little bit, like several drops of the pine on the chest, like in a knead application, it takes the pain out of that heart muscle like immediately. You know, a lot of times it happens like with exercise or times of stress. It's just like a bunch of lactic acid is in the blood, and it just makes the heart achy, like your legs would get achy or your arms would get achy with a lot of exercise. Same thing can happen with the heart muscle. And so pine is actually really super good for that. And then Sylvester pine in particular is very good for elevating cortisone levels in the body, which is how your body basically deals with inflammation and like injury or arthritic conditions, like conditions that are degenerating somewhat. Sylvester pine, out of all the pines, is one of the best ones to use for the production of, stimulating the production of cortisone. You know, it doesn't have cortisone in it, but it makes your body produce the cortisone.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get really
Like, so
confused
like, you know
about
how
all the,
sometimes you might feel like not necessarily like when you're sick, but like you'll just be doing stuff and you're just like, I feel a little bit achy, like the body just feels achy all over. If you put like 6 or 8 drops of the Sylvester pine on your wrist and just rub it together like that, like in 10 or 15 minutes, that achiness will go away. It's because the body's already starting to produce cortisone and your body's already starting to fight off the inflammation.
that's fantastic, yeah. I
Yeah.
get all those spruces and firs and pines mixed up. Can't, so this
Oh
helps.
yeah, easy to do.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I'm still working on getting you guys like a bit of an encyclopedia for things, and so I try to knock some of that out every day, and so we're gonna have it to you here sometime soon.
Wonderful. Can I ask one more? And if it's
Sure,
too
of course.
much, please feel free to tell me to
No,
do
no.
it another time. I just got the sleep kit, the Dreamtime kit, rather.
Uh-huh.
I haven't even started using it. It just came today.
Okay.
And first of all, thanks. Sam sent me the protocol, which I didn't realize comes with the invoice. So I thought I would say that out loud in case anybody else besides me didn't realize that those
Oh,
links
okay.
are in the invoices.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. You'd have to ask Sam on that one. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'd really like to know, like the protocol says what to do, and
Mhm.
it says at the beginning has a bullet list of 6 things of what the whole kit does. But could you give me just sort of a quick sentence on each one of them and what each one is addressing?
Let me pull it up because I don't have it in my memory.
Yeah.
I just got it if you want.
Let me like pull it up and look at it because I'll have to keep going back to it. Okay, what do we got here? Help sleep quality, increases dream activity, processing, rest and repair, improves. So, okay, so you are wanting to know about which piece?
Well, what each one of those oils is doing within that larger
Oh, I see.
purpose.
Okay, so there's unconscious, intuition, Paracelsus, and okay. So unconscious, you know, part of the thing with the unconscious blend is part of your ability to go into like a more intuitive state or get into the unconscious, like when you're sleeping, is actually tied to tension in the digestive tract and in the respiratory tract. And so that blend unconscious is actually geared towards relaxing both the respiratory tract, which is smooth muscle, and then the digestive tract, which is smooth muscle. And by reducing the tension and the spasms in that area in like a general way, not super specific to a particular organ or anything, but just taking down the tension somewhat actually allows you to shift in your mental faculties much more substantially. And so the issue is that, the gut affects our cognitive function to a much higher degree than we realize. And even when there's like inflammation in the gut, it actually can cause dysfunction in the brain as well. Like, it just makes your brain foggy and you just can't process things quite as well. And so when there's a lot of tension in the gut, especially, the tendency is to have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of tenseness, and it's overstimulating to the rational part of the mind or the brain. And so it just helps to unwind that segment. Then the intuition blend actually helps you go a bit deeper into the intuitive side of the mind and helps you to process things that are beyond the senses. So part of processing things beyond the senses are tapping into the unconscious, but also tapping into like stimuli from the environment that maybe your senses didn't pick up or your senses got overwhelmed, but you kind of process it and there's information that but you're not able to tap into it because the mind is so focused on the senses themselves. The intuition blend helps you to kind of go past that way of processing and processing things that's beyond sensory information. Then the Paracelsus deepens the state of parasympathetic activity, which is rest and repair, or another way of saying it is rest and digest. So it helps the body to go into a more relaxed state, less into fight, flight, and action activity mode, and more into rest and repair and, digestion and just it's winding the body down and shifts it into a state that's closer to like what happens during sleep time rather than what's happening during your normal everyday function and activity. And then the dream body blend is to literally help you displace lower vibrational, emotional, and mental energies like while you're sleeping. It's made to basically let things go while you're sleeping. Like it's almost like a form of detachment, but while you're asleep.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Okay. And then go ahead, Cynthia, then Denise.
Hey, Cynthia.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
because Ralph was in front of me.
I apologize. Yeah, sorry, Ralph. Cynthia, go ahead and then we'll do Ralph. Sorry about that, Ralph.
Okay. Well, my knees are really messed up, and I have you've been helping me with my knees for years now, and there are actually times when I have not a bit of problems, like all last winter, and then every once in a while they'll flare up, and I don't always know why. So that happened in March, and then I was doing things and it got a little better, and I did the immune class. But it wasn't completely okay because I'd also walked a bunch at a music festival we'd gone to for 2 weeks. So that didn't help, but I was doing things and it did okay. Well, 2 weeks ago, we took a trip with, it was a family trip to Disney World. And so the first day we walked 23,000 steps. And then that was just the first day. So what's going on? There are 3 things. So I've got a lot of pain in my left knee.
So when you say left knee, like what part of your knee?
The whole thing, the back feels
front,
tight.
sides, back, deep inside.
Yes, the back feels tight. The sides are tender to touch. It's getting a little bit better because we've been back a week and I've been doing things, oils.
Do you have a diagnosis? Have you had a doctor look at it or x-rayed or anything like that?
I'm going to go tomorrow.
Okay. Was there ever issues with cartilage or meniscus out or bone on bone?
I don't think Not that I know of, and I don't think
Okay.
I have a tear. At one point, I had a bone spur, but then that seemed to even go away. But the back seems tight. And also what happened is my legs swelled because I've got some edema going on,
The knee or the whole leg?
the whole leg, bottom, from the knee down,
Okay.
especially around my ankles. And at night and at other times they would ache, and at times it was unbearable. And trying to get back in the car, it was unbearable. It was not fun, and trying to sleep at night. So it was affecting my sleep because I usually curl up in a ball, and I couldn't figure out how to get my knees. Then the other thing that's going on is, and this was happening even before we left,
Okay.
when I sit, like if I'm working and I sit, or riding in a car and sit, or go to a restaurant, when I stand up, I can't walk. And it's really, really painful. And it takes about 30 seconds, a little more since we got back, and then I'm fine. So I don't know what's going on there.
And at that time you had swelling in your legs as well?
This is going on. This was even going on before. This is just about every time I sit for an hour or so.
And the pain is in the knees, not the leg or the hip or anything like that. It's always in the knees.
Yes. Yes.
And you haven't had those x-rayed?
No, tomorrow. Well, a couple years ago when it had flared up, I did. And they said there was some arthritis in my knees.
They tell you what kind of arthritis? Was it spurring? Was it thinning of the cartilage? Was it?
I don't think, no, they didn't mention that.
Knees, it tends to be osteoarthritis, which is thinning of cartilage. Like it happens mostly with weight-bearing joints, like the knees, the hips, and the spinal column. And so osteoarthritis is basically just like wear and tear. You know what I mean? It's not an autoimmune issue. It's just, it's weight-bearing joints that. So, okay, so you have inflammation, they're painful. You have fluid retention, and any history of cardiac issues or high blood pressure or anything like that?
High blood pressure.
High blood pressure?
Yeah.
Blood pressure is regulated? Are you on a diuretic? Like what are you on for your blood pressure?
Nothing right now. So I'm going to talk to the doctor about that tomorrow too, because I should probably
Yeah.
revisit that.
So he's probably going to put you on a diuretic. Like you could potentially augment with oil that's a diuretic, but you could also just see how the diuretic works with your doc. That's going to take down a bunch of the inflammation from the leg, because it's basically just fluid retention. And so if you want to do something internally, something like parsley, something like lovage, juniper, something like that could be helpful. It's basically just going to make you pee more, right? And then if you want to do something topically, you have to kind of play with it a little bit to see what's going to help. My tendency in this area, just because I like to go this route because it's you can put a bunch of it on the body, it's inexpensive, and you can kind of go crazy with it, and there's not really any side effect. And that's to take like some cedar and like alcohol or witch hazel. And I would literally take, I would go big with this. Like I do this to myself sometimes, where I take like a 8-ounce bottle of like witch hazel, and I pour like a whole 10 ml bottle of cedar in it, and then shake it up, and then rub it on my legs a couple of times a day. And the thing here is it's going to have a bit of a diuretic effect, but it also is a venous tonic, so it's helping blood return back to the heart, and you're kind of getting a little bit of the best the best of both worlds. Your doc's going to put you on a diuretic most likely, and then the venous tonic will just help get the fluid out of the legs, and then also help move the blood back to the heart, which, the tendency is that when you're starting to have fluid retention there, that blood is going down into the lower limbs and then it's pooling there. It's not like getting, back up. And so every once in a while I'll mix in some rosemary with it, but a lot of times right at first I just do straight up cedar. And there's always the potential for there to be some blockages in the lymphatic system or the veins. And so something like sandalwood or mastic can work really good for that. You can do it topically. You could also do it internally, but I wouldn't even go down that road until you see what the diuretic is going to do and what the cedar does. And it's going to take a little bit, it's going to take like a few days or even a week to take some of the fluid out of the legs. But like once you kind of get a reduction of fluid in the legs, it should take some of the pressure off the joints. The thing that I would be concerned about with some of the symptoms you're describing is that the cartilage is getting thin between the knees. And so if that's the case, you just have to stay on top of like anti-inflammatory approaches on the knee, like, topically, like things like German chamomile or yarrow, that blue healer, the Inflamind, the pain relief, inflammatory blend, any of the things that are for inflammation, for targeting inflammation, can be very helpful. It will be helpful and it will reduce the pain. The thing that I like about German chamomile for this application, which is also it's in the blue healer, and you could just use it by itself, but it's super anti-inflammatory. It cleans up kind of the metabolic waste that can be in an area. And it's really good about dispersing the fluid in a particular area. So, you get a little bit of fluid retention in the knee. Out of all the areas in the body, that's where people are the most prone to like having fluid retention in a joint, is in the knee. And you put the German chamomile on and it just helps to disperse that fluid and, move it into where the lymphatic system can pick it up and move it out or something like that. I'm a little concerned that you have like that much pain. And so, anytime the body's in that kind of pain, like it also kind of starts like a bit of a stress response. So I'd like to see something to be able to like reduce your pain. And so, even if it's like an arthritic condition, sometimes the pain can get so sharp or so bad that, you almost go to the segment of like nerve pain, even though it's more that like the sensory nerves, like think of it like this, like if there's a lot of fluid retention, which also would translate into lymphatic stagnation, right? So if that area has a lot of lymphatic stagnation, that is like dull, achy pain, right? And so over a period of time, that dull, achy pain, because of the lymphatic stagnation, keeps getting intense. And then at some point it becomes like kind of sharper pain. And the reason is that when there's lymphatic stagnation in an area for a long period of time, it actually starts to overactivate the sensory nerves in the area. And so your nervous system starts sending, say like per minute, this is just a hypothetical number, like say it's sending, 25 impulses to the brain a minute. When the sensory nerves get overactivated, it starts sending 150 sensory, impulses to the brain in that same minute. And so it basically starts to cause like a kind of nerve pain, right? And so when that starts to be that bad, where you're having a hard time getting up and things like that, I like to go, like you can use things that are like peppermint, corn mint, things like that, the pain relief neuropathic. But I also like the idea of things that have wintergreen in it. And the wintergreen has very strong pain relieving properties. But the thing about wintergreen is, whenever you have an arthritic condition, the body will like tense up around the area to like protect the joint, and it will actually literally try to prevent you from moving that joint because it's trying to prevent pain and or potential damage. And so what happens is then, like you said, like I can't get up, I can't make my leg move. And it's part of it is like your body's like going, yeah, we're just gonna shut that down. Like we're gonna tense everything up around it and shut that down. And so you stand up and you start moving it around, and then it loosens up, and then you can kind of walk. And so one of the oils that was really super good for that is wintergreen. It's a pain reliever. It's good for spasms, but it's good for unwinding like really chronic spasms that have been there for a while, which is something that happens around like arthritic joints or arthritic tension. And so you can use some version of that.
Okay.
You can use wintergreen by itself. You can use the pain relief antispasmodic. You could also use the birch complex. Like all of those would probably work for that. But if you don't have any of that, like just look for something that's pain relieving, like mint, corn mint, spearmint, anything with mint is going to have some pain relieving property and also be a bit antispasmodic and a bit anti-inflammatory, and you can slap it on and feel good about it. And the thing with as you unwind it, there are combinations that you can do. It wouldn't be necessarily in this phase, but if you can get it, like I would almost say you're not in like crisis, but like when you're in that much pain and having that much difficulty moving things, it's a crisis of sorts. And so let me look something up here.
And it's still wearing.
Oh, it's exhausting. Like anybody who's had severe pain or chronic pain, I think they know pain is exhausting.
Yeah.
Let me just look something up here real super quick. Incident pain. Yeah. So this is what I would call, because there's different kinds of pain. And so when you have pain that gets worse with movement, like if you're sitting, you're kind of okay, and then you get up and start moving and it starts to hurt worse. Mm-hmm. That is what you would refer to as incident pain. So you could still have arthritis, you could still have like a disc out, you could have, whatever, and you're sitting there and you feel fine, and then you get up and move, even though you're treating your arthritis and all those things, you still have this component of what we would call incident pain. And incident pain, some of the best things to treat incident pain are wintergreen, like wintergreen and helichrysum together.
Okay.
And so that antispasmodic, pain relief antispasmodic is literally for incident pain. Like I made that for myself like many, many years ago when I broke my back. Like when everything calmed down and everything, I would be fine. And then I'd get up and I was like, ugh, like, and then I'd sit back down, I'd be fine again. And so like regular pain relievers weren't always getting it. And so I was like, you got to come up with this different approach. And so what I started using way back when was this blend for incident pain. And I even mix it, like I rotate it sometimes where there's this blend. I don't even know if we have this one on the site. It's, you can email us if you want this, but I could also just tell you the formula and you can probably just make it yourself with stuff you have. Okay. But it's basically, it's a really simple formula. It's just 2 oils, but it's for tendonitis. And it's basically half helichrysum and then half Eucalyptus citrodora. Like it's oh yeah, it's, okay. Yeah, it's citrodora is in the like the arthritic blend, like Arthricare and things like that. And the two of them together are they have an antispasmodic property to them, but they're really good for reducing inflammation, but really specifically in and around like tendons and ligaments. Like if you had like an injury and your arm, your shoulder was all swollen, it wouldn't be the thing to go to. Like, you know, other things would work better, like the German chamomile, the blue healer, you know, all those things, or you just had surgery, not the thing to go to. But if you're still having some pain and you're still having a little bit of issue 3 months after the injury, then you're starting to deal with tendonitis or tenosynovitis, you know, some form of where it's not the muscle, it's the tendon. And the issue is that like tendons are working in like a sheath, and the tendon and sheath sometimes get irritated. Sometimes there's a little bit of debris in the sheath. And so when the tendon moves in the sheath, like every time it moves, it kind of gets irritated. And the tendon is much denser than muscle, and it doesn't have as good of blood supply. And so the Eucalyptus citrodora is really good for the anti-inflammatory. It's very good for removing like deposits that are in that tendon and sheath. But then the helichrysum is very good for reducing inflammation, reducing pain, and then it helps to it's releasing fascia, but it helps to release the fascia that's in and around the tendon, because the tendon is a lot of like dense fascia in and around it, and sometimes there's such a constriction in the tendon that it already doesn't have a poor blood supply, but if it gets like really tight, it reduces the blood supply even more. And so, you know, like there's times where when I was working with athletes, they'd like tear a tendon or something, and they'd go, oh, I wish I broke a bone because it's probably going to heal faster, because tendons are notorious for healing very slow because it's such dense tissue with such poor blood supply. And so this very simple blend, it's just half and half helichrysum, half Eucalyptus citrodora. You mix it up, and then I don't even put it in a carrier oil. I just put it on, and you know, if I put it on the area, and like I go see my massage therapist, she'll go, are you using that blend again? And I'll go, yeah. And she goes, you put it right here, right? And
Wow.
I'll go, yeah. And I go, how can you tell? And she goes, this area is less inflamed than all the other areas, and this is usually like the inflamed spot. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
I mean, that's how good it works. And it's simple. It's simple, and, you know, it's relatively inexpensive. And so I would probably rotate with something that has wintergreen in it,
Okay.
or just wintergreen by itself. And then at least the citrodora, but I'd mix citrodora and helichrysum together. And if you want, we can blend it. I can put it on the site, but you probably have the oils to just
Yeah.
mix it together, and then boom, you're good to go.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, like that will that will probably be a game changer for your knees. Like it with reducing the fluid retention, and then helping to unwind some of the spasms that happen with the movement. Like after that, you even if it's like bone on bone, it still keeps the pain down to where movement's okay. Like you know, you want to stay on top of the inflammation. You know, that's just the thing. Like if a joint gets compromised, you just want to always stay on top of it. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean, like if it's not painful and it's not super inflamed, it doesn't even mean day to day. Like it just means like, once a week, I'll just do a little treatment on it just to keep it good, you know, so it doesn't flare up. But if you can get the movement pain down, it can be quite the game changer for you.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
If you're having problems troubleshooting it, let me know. But
Okay.
between the diuretic and what we just talked about, it should knock a lot of it out.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
And so, like, you know, going back to Disneyland, you know, you're going to do that. You take your blend for incident pain, you take your blend for some inflammation, and you just kind of bank on, I might need it, I might not, but I'm going to put it on at the end of the day regardless, so that the next day I don't wake up with some weird thing. I mean, it would be great that we didn't have to do that, but I have several spots of my body where as long as I maintain them, they're good. If I ignore them, they scream at me. you
Yeah.
know?
I took the marjoram and the cedar tonics
Oh,
from the
perfect.
inflammation class and used those. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've
yeah.
emptied those out. So I'll have to make more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's actually even another approach, like doing the rotation of the cedar and the marjoram on the knees. That's a great idea. You know,
Okay.
because that's going to open and close the vessels and help, you know, flush some of that deposit in. But, you know, part of the issue is you have fluid retention in the leg. So the circulation in the area is not the greatest, but with a little bit of releasing of the fluid, that will change dramatically.
Okay. And it helps to put my legs up too.
I would do that daily until the fluid retention goes down.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
mean, honestly, you know, there was times that I worked on like pro athletes, you know, guys that rode like in the Tour de France, and every day they would spend 15 minutes on their back with their legs up at a 45-degree angle with their legs on a wall.
Mhm.
And you know, these are guys that are in prime shape, and they were doing it.
Yeah.
So I was like, if they're doing it, why shouldn't I be doing it?
Yeah. It makes a difference.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then go ahead, Ralph, then Kathy.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg,
Hey.
got some questions here on some
Fire
oils.
away. Yeah.
Spanish sage, is it a cure-all?
Any of the sages except for clary sages, like any of the sages are considered cure-alls. And so a cure-all doesn't mean that it just wipes out everything. It just means that like if the body's in balance, if there's a lot of different things going on, it just keeps moving the body to a state of balance and a state of healing.
Yeah.
And so when you have a lot of different things going on, or you have something going on and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I totally don't want to do.
Yeah.
You would use the sage. Here's also the thing with sage is it calms down sensory nerves, which when the body's out of balance, the nervous system tends to be a bit out of balance.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that sage is really super good for is brain fatigue. And whenever you have issues in the body where the body's not responding, or you have a chronic, you know, pain syndrome, or you have some health issue where the body's just not dealing with it like it should.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the issue a lot of times is actually there's brain fatigue. And so you're strengthening the brain so that the body can respond better to whatever the health issue is.
Okay.
And so like when people have been in the middle of a chronic fatigue fibromyalgia crisis, I mean, I was putting probably 40 to 50 drops per ounce of alcohol or witch hazel of Spanish sage into a bottle. I'd have them shake it up and just rub it all over their body, you know, everywhere but the face. And in 1 to 2 applications, so usually in an afternoon, it'd pull them out of the crisis. You know, it's so calming to the sensory nerves, and it's so strengthening to the brain. Both of those conditions involve a lot of brain fatigue. It just it can be a game changer. And so you could use it for anything of that nature, or just like any time where something's going on and you're not sure what's going on, you know, because it's strengthening to the adrenals. It's, you know, they do so many things. And so I would keep it on hand for when in doubt. You know, I have an old bottle of sage that I've been filling, you know, I keep filling up the empty bottle. And there's times when I wear it and, you know, Spence will go, why are you wearing that? I was like, I don't know, you know, brain fatigue or whatever, but it's just keeping everything running, you know, you know what I mean? It's just, so I guess what I'm saying is like, sometimes I use it also as like a preventative or like a tonic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Black pepper versus pink pepper. What's the difference?
A little bit more heat and a little bit more circulation with the black pepper. Both of them release fascia equally as well. I would say the pink pepper probably releases fascia just a little tiny bit better. The black pepper stimulates circulation a little bit better. I would say that the pink pepper is actually very activating to the heart, where
Mhm.
the black pepper is very strengthening and toning to the basic chakra.
Okay. All right. Um, for sleep, I tried some Tarragon the other night.
Mhm.
Put it on the top of my feet, on my wrists, and then I put a little bit on my temples. I won't put it on my temples anymore. That was a little spicy.
Yeah, do it in areas where the skin's not sensitive, like
Okay.
or just mix it with like a little tiny bit of lotion or massage oil.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been having a problem for a long time that I wake up in the middle of the night for an hour or so.
Like how late in the night? Like after you've gone to sleep, like an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours?
Generally 3 to 5 hours, someplace in there.
So I would probably try, do you have any St. John's wort?
I'll look.
Even if you didn't have the essential oil, can you run and get something like is there a health food store nearby or something? that you
Yes.
can get some?
Yeah.
Yeah. Try
I've got
taking
I've got a good health food vitamin store in the neighborhood.
try taking a couple capsules of St. John's wort right as you go to bed. Like the
Okay.
oil would be stronger, but here, even just a couple capsules of the St. John's wort, and the issue being that, like, you know, sometimes you're releasing thoughts and emotions at night. Sometimes it might be one of the organs that are in the middle of doing something,
Mhm.
but you have a multifaceted approach here. So the St. John's wort helps to release emotions
Yeah.
and thoughts, right? But also
Yeah.
it's a blood purifier. So it impacts the kidneys, it impacts the spleen, it impacts the liver, it impacts the lungs, the gallbladder, it impacts all of those, right?
Okay.
And so anything that is potentially something going in one of those organs or in the blood itself, it actually is helping to release. Now, on the flip side of that, if you're on any strong medications,
I'm not.
a couple capsules of St. John's wort would be fine, but if you took several drops of the essential oil, it would flush those things out of your system. So
Yeah.
it is a very strong way to do a detox. You know, you are able to release that out. But, you know, there was a study back, 25 years ago or something, in my younger years, there was a study that came out of Europe, and they were looking at different ways to augment sleeping, and you know, they were looking at valerian, they were looking at melissa, they were looking at all these things, right?
Okay.
And you know, some of them were about helping you to fall asleep, and then one of the issues was that once you're asleep, the potential for you to stay asleep.
Mhm.
And the only thing that works really well for prolonging your sleep cycles was St. John's wort. Now,
Okay.
the other thing that I would throw in that mix is I think Melissa could be helpful there, but
Mhm.
I would probably go St. John's wort first, or mix them.
Yeah.
Or kava kava. And the reason why I say Melissa and kava kava is they both have a sedating effect on the central nervous system. And sometimes the nervous system is just, it's not even that it's agitated, it's just a little busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
entirely possible in my case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, usually some, like a lot of forms of insomnia or sleep disturbances are just the nervous system's a little busy, or the endocrine system's a little busy, or it's just got its timing off or something like that. And so when I'm having those issues, I actually throw down some kava, but any of those things should work.
Okay.
Yeah. The tarragon, really good for helping you to fall asleep, but like what you could do also is, like when you're laying in bed, just take long, slow, deep breaths with the tarragon until your eyes start getting heavy, and then set it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Question on helichrysum.
Yeah.
I was working in the shop the other day and didn't notice it, but I had whacked my arm.
Okay.
And didn't, it wasn't until the next morning I get up and I got this scab on my arm. I go, gee, when did I do that?
Right.
So I put some helichrysum on it, and needless to say, the scab is still there. There was no redness around the scab at any point.
Okay.
Is there any other oil you would have used if I've already got an injury where there's already a scab on top of it?
No, like, was it like just an abrasion or was it like a deep cut?
I couldn't, all I know is there's a scab there. Like I said, I looked down and I went, gee, I wonder what
Is
I
it
hit.
wide or narrow?
It's round.
It's round, so probably a bit more of an abrasion. Helichrysum's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes with an abrasion, I mean, you might be able to just leave it alone and then apply the oil to it. But sometimes if there was, like if you're in like a workplace where there's a lot of sawdust or something like that, you still might want to scrub it a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
if you went to the doctor, they'd scrub it way past the point you would think that they would need to, and
Mhm.
like it hurts, and then
Yeah.
you would put that on there.
Okay.
You don't always have to do that, but if you think that, you know, there's debris in there, you might have to. And so, you know, you be the judge of that. But helichrysum is a pretty solid choice.
Yeah.
If you're just worried about infection and not worried so much about inflammation, you could go simply with like tea tree or something like that. Tea tree is really solid for something like that. The thing with tea tree is it would still reduce the pain a little bit, not as much as the helichrysum, but if there's any potential for infection or infectious material,
Mhm.
it would knock that down quite a bit. And
Yeah.
then the thing with tea tree is it also helps to draw things out a little bit. And so
Mhm.
if there is like something that like some debris from the abrasion, you know,
Yeah.
like say some sawdust or something that got shoved in there,
Mhm.
putting the tea tree on would actually help draw that out. Like if you put tea tree on a splinter
Yeah.
and you keep doing it, the splinter will actually come out on its own,
Okay.
you know. So depending on the nature of what it is, the thing that I find very interesting with tea tree is it has a lot of different uses, you know. In the early part of the century, I think it was the British Army used to, it was either British or Australian, I want to say it was British. They used to give the foot soldiers a thing of tea tree, and you know, because it's really good for athlete's foot, it's good for wounds and abrasions, it has some pain relieving properties. It actually helps to release some lower emotions somewhat, especially things in the unconscious.
Mhm.
It's good for respiratory issues, you know, any sort of infection. It's one of those things where you could throw it on just about any kind of situation, and it
Yeah.
might not be the best choice, but it's still solid.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if in doubt, when you have an open wound and there, like you said, there's not a lot of inflammation, throw some tea tree on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Last one is I'm having several spots on my hands and on my face. And
Mhm.
it's like it's a white scab, but it's, you know, it's like white dead skin spot, not a scab. It's just, some of them look like moles. Okay. But it's white. It's not brown.
And do they look like blisters, or they just look like a mole?
They just look like some of them look like just a white spot on the skin, and the skin is dry. Okay. One of them, it looks like a mole, but it's white.
Oh, yeah. Where are they at?
The mole is on my left front temple, and the white spots are, there's 3 of them on my hands and 1 of them on my elbow.
And we don't think it's any sort of like shingles or anything like that?
No, I've had shingles. It's not that.
Okay. Will you send me a picture? Because honestly,
Sure.
I'm not sure what that is.
Okay.
Send,
Yeah.
send me a picture, like just email it to Sam and I'll
Yep.
look at it and I'll get back to you via email.
Okay. I'll do
Yeah,
that.
I'm not sure what that is.
Okay, cool.
Like if I see it, I could probably have a better idea of what it is.
All right. I'll send them over to you. Muchas gracias.
You're so welcome.
And then I just realized there's 2 Kathys. You guys can see yourself. So Kathy T and then Kathy C.
Okay, to refresh, face pain, herpes virus.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And on the antiviral, I'm doing better. I don't have
Oh,
that
good.
intense pain because I talked to a surgeon. I was really considering surgery.
You're
So
right, right.
today I went to my cranial person, and when I told her about the herpes virus, she suggested that I take clove oil and myrrh oil in capsules, quite a bit of drops. So I want to see what your opinion was about that.
I mean, the myrrh has a little bit of like hitting the opioid receptors. Clove oil is used for neuralgias, like, you know, nerve
Huh?
pains. Take it in internal. I mean, it's worth a shot. Definitely couldn't hurt. A lot of times with something like that, you know, you use like, well, see, that's not even pain though. I was gonna say, like, when you have like a herpes thing or any sort of like viral pain where it's like, you know, it's causing like skin eruptions or something, the Melissa, Eucalyptus citrodora, even
I'm not having
Citrullola.
any eruptions. It's on that nerve, it seems, you know, it's
Right.
that nerve is a place to.
And
find
is it,
yourself.
is it, but so there's no issue on the skin. You're just
Nope.
following the pathway.
And that's what he thinks. He did a test. I'm off the charts with the herpes virus. Since I'm on the antiviral, I am better. Because I mean, I was seriously considering surgery, which is irreversible numbness, basically. So I have improved. I'm also taking the L-lysine, which you told me
Right.
before to take.
Right.
But she said that maybe she was just doing it for pain, you know, to try to subside. She also gave me a liposomal glutathione and said to take that.
I mean, I don't see an issue with taking either one. If one of them works, I would say it's probably going to be the clove.
Yeah, because I know I put that on teeth if I have
Yeah. Yeah, really
Food.
good for nerve pain. Usually would use it topically, or like when you take it internal, you kind of are doing more for like the gut or something like that. But it could work.
Well, I feel you're much more knowledgeable than she is. That's why I wanted to check before I did it.
Do
And
you
myrrh is
already
pretty
have? Do you already
expensive.
have? Do you already have some?
I have clove, but I don't have myrrh because I've looked before.
I would try the clove. I would put a couple of drops in either in water or in a capsule with a little bit of like olive oil or something, and then pop it and just see if it took the edge off.
So it's not for herpes or viral.
No,
It's
it's
mostly
for
just
nerve
pain.
pain. It's for nerve pain. Yeah.
But you're thinking it really wouldn't, by the time it gets to the gut and stuff, it's not going to make its way to that nerve. No.
It would have an overall effect on the body, like, you know, pain wise and nerve pain wise.
Okay.
The one that I would probably, if you wanted to try to take the edge off too, that could be a little bit more immediate and you could do bigger dosages, is galbanum.
I have that, and that I was taking that quite regularly, but it didn't seem to be doing what I needed it to do. And I was taking like about 3 drops in water daily in the morning.
Try putting like 6-8 drops on your wrist and just rubbing it together,
Okay.
and try taking the clove oil. Like take the clove oil internally, do the galbanum on your wrist.
Okay. And then nothing else for the herpes virus itself. I mean, I'm taking the antiviral because I
No, the
wanna get out-
antivirals. I mean, if you want to support that, Melissa's a bit expensive, but Eucalyptus citrodora is good for that kind of viral activity.
I might have Melissa. I'll have to look because I have a lot
If
of
you have
oil.
Melissa, try taking Melissa internally. Yeah, like
And how many drops in water?
2 or 3 drops in water.
Okay, and that's for the getting rid of the virus, because that's what I want. I want to get off the
Yeah.
antiviral, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna take it for a while because the pain was so bad.
It's an antiviral, but specific to like herpes and things like that.
Melissa is.
Yeah. Melissa and Eucalyptus citrodora.
Okay, both of those are particular. I mean, it's funny in your list today that the things, Samantha, herpes was mentioned in a lot of them.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking, wow, how appropriate, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
okay.
the Eucalyptus citrodora, it's like one of those ones that it's, I was going through and I was looking at my list and I was like, it's one that I even forget about. Like, it's just such a quiet oil on the shelf that I was like, we should be using this more. Like, it's inexpensive. You could use a bunch of it on the body. It's anti-inflammatory. It's good for joints. It's good for like viral outbreaks, especially those kind of skin type viral outbreaks. Why isn't this on my mix? And so, yeah, that's why.
So
I
to
threw it
take
out.
that one internally, a couple drops in water.
No,
the
you can just
eucalyptus?
actually do that topically, like
The
just
eucalyptus?
like on the area.
Because see, it's so internal. I mean, it's right here, but it's inside. It's that trigeminal
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
nerve.
Just like wherever, like it doesn't have to be exactly on the spot. Just get it somewhere kind of close to the area, and
Okay.
it should have a bit of an impact.
Okay, because there's nothing physically erupting, you know what I mean? It's just, for some reason, he thinks it's living on that nerve. That's
Yeah.
where it flares up for me. And
Yeah,
obviously with the antiviral working, I'm
Yeah.
better. I mean, I was like suicidal pain. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah, oh, I
suicidal,
hear.
but
Yeah,
that
yeah,
pain
yeah,
can
yeah.
be that. And I mean, if it gets bad like that again, I'm just gonna do surgery, which that's irreversible, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, my last little thing is
Mhm.
I have an Aura ring, so it measures my heart rate variability and all that, and I hardly have any REM sleep.
Do the back and forth between mugwort and artemisia. And you can follow a pattern, but you don't even need to follow a pattern. You can just inhale 15, 20 times and then inhale the other one 15, 20 times.
Like right before bed or?
You can do it anytime during the day, but it works best right before bed. But even if you do it earlier in the day, it will still work.
Okay, I mean, I don't feel like I'm deficient in sleep because of the REM, but
No,
every
but you
time it comes up warning,
Yeah.
low REM.
Yeah. You still want to be able to hit all the markers in your sleep. And so
Okay.
we've had several people that, have like a Fitbit or, whatever the thing is that measures the sleep. And when they do the mugwort artemisia back and forth, their REM cycle gets much longer, much deeper.
Oh, good. There'll be real evidence of that because I
Yeah.
can
You
see.
can measure it with the device. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
you're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Kathy C, then Barbara.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey there, I'll be real brief. My son had a reaction to the booster for COVID.
Okay.
Ran temperature all week, 102, 104, and did something with his platelets.
Mm.
He seems to be coming back around, but I know he went through a cytonic storm. What do you recommend?
I would, do you have lemongrass?
Yeah, I have RIP, the herb and the bottle of oil. Yes.
Yeah, so use the bottle of oil, 2 or 3 drops in water a couple of times a day. And if you had Sylvester pine, I would probably put a little bit of that on his wrist. So the fever's over, right? Or no?
Yes. Mhm.
And where did he get the shot? Like what shoulder?
I don't know. I don't know. But he's also dealing with getting a crown on one of his teeth. So the doctor seemed to think that he might have been fighting off something already.
Yeah. Do you have black cumin?
Yes.
Rotate the lemongrass and the black cumin.
Okay.
Do a little bit of the Sylvester pine on the wrist.
Mhm.
That should be enough. I'm getting a little bit of a lymph node vibe off of him, like some blocked lymph nodes, like probably in and around the site from where the injection site was,
Okay.
which is I don't want to say common, but it can happen with a vaccine or a booster.
Mhm.
And so I would just nip that in the bud, like some bay laurel, like even just neat in and around the area, like, if you got it in the shoulder, like a little bit in and around the armpit or on the side itself, up on the neck, something like that. That should be enough. Probably even just a couple dosages of that would be enough.
He may have a kidney stone, so that may be the block you're picking up on.
Oh, that's another,
I
that's
know.
a whole nother ball of wax.
Mhm.
Are they checking him for the stone?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a tough one to deal with oils.
Yeah.
What's the herb? There is an herb for that, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Well, you can get back to me.
Yeah, I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, that's
It,
cool.
it has something like in the name where it's for what it is, and I cannot remember what it is. It's a very old school herb. You won't be able to find it at a health food store. You'll have to. I mean, even something like shepherd's purse or something like that would probably work. But there is a oh God, what is it? I'll have to look it up.
That'll be fine. I want Barbara to have some time, so I'll
Yeah.
slide on off and thank you very much.
Yeah, hope he feels better though.
He is, but he's getting better.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Barbara, then Susan, then Michelle, if we have time.
Thanks, Kathy. Hello there.
Hey.
I learned today that a friend who's been having concentration, and he calls them other brain issues, has what he calls a traumatic brain injury, 12 years ago, skiing accident. And they didn't pay attention to his head because they were fixing his shoulder at the time. But he's having trouble holding on to information and feeling kind of spacey. I don't know what else, but I don't know if you've got a quick
What
tip.
did he tell you what side of the brain it was?
Oh, he didn't. I can find out, but I didn't think to ask.
I'd be curious to see where the injury was. Like,
Okay.
you know, because different problems can erupt, but couple of things. So one, going back to what we were talking about before, is treating the brain with sage can be very good in this arena. Treating with helichrysum can be very good. Treating with chamomiles can be very good, like Roman chamomile, Cape chamomile. German chamomile would work as well, but I tend to go more Roman or Cape. And then the other one is potentially basil. And the issue is that there can be a thing, you know, because like you hit the head, and so there's the impact point, but then there's also like a rebound that can happen. So it's almost like setting up this pull shot. So depending on like how he hit and where he hit can depend, like he could have a couple what we call like lesions, and basically it's like an area where the fascia in the brain tissue gets kind of stuck, and then you don't get the greatest like blood supply to that area. A lot of inhaling with helichrysum could be very good for that. One that's a little bit of a sleeper in that arena is Cape snowbush. Potentially that could be helpful. Basil can stimulate some of the cerebral functions, but he's having a hard time holding on to information. So right there, I would say like three things that I would look at. Want to address the potential for a lesion, which just is like a fancy way of saying scar tissue, but up there, right?
Mhm.
So we want to minimize that. Brain fatigue with the sage, and then stimulating like cognitive abilities and just like brain function would be basil, like just regular basil, like nothing fancy or anything, just regular basil, like probably 3 or 4. Let's start him off with 2 or 3 drops at a time in water, but probably go up to like 4 or 5 drops a couple of times a day.
Okay, and application method for the sage?
6-8 drops on his wrist, and inhale it a little bit, and let's call that good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to you.
Keep me posted on that. Like, you know, because the thing is find out what the nature, like where he hit his head, and we can go from there. But you know, like I ran a study. We actually were working on in a rehab hospital, and it was just head injuries. And there's no template for this. Like you literally just have to evaluate case by case by case by case. And so if we get a little bit of what's, you know, what his symptoms are, and like was he skiing? Was he in a car
He was
accident?
skiing, but-
He was skiing. Okay. So
The other
find
thing
out-
I noticed is
Uh-huh.
today he got quite emotional, and I don't know that it was related to his symptoms. I think he responded to something else, and then that kind of triggered he calls them brain issues, but there's definitely an emotional component. I don't know if it's the cart or the horse.
Is there any impulse control issues or anything like that?
Not sure. I'm not aware of them.
Okay, and any outbursts, emotional outbursts or anything like that?
Not aware of those either.
Okay, I would say, let's just find out where he got hit, and it's probably a bit more subtle because it's been so long. If it was really a big issue, I would guess somebody would have caught it. And so this is probably lower grade and almost kind of falls in line with like a functional problem rather than like a medical condition. And so with a bit of therapy, we could unwind this. You know, part of the thing too is sometimes there's lesions inside the skull, and sometimes there's actually lesions on the outside of the skull. And so knowing where the injury is at, we can go through and evaluate him and move forward appropriately.
Thank you. One last thing I think of. He had recently had surgery for deviated septum, and he says he's breathing better than he ever has.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's been an increase in this other symptomatology since that surgery or not, if there's a connection with either of those, but I'll look into that with him.
Yeah, that. I mean, it's on the head, but it probably didn't, but you never know. Like, you know, you get up on the head and like kind of almost like all the rules get thrown out. You really have to just look at it case by case. And so it would be a piece of information. Most likely it's probably not an issue, but you never know.
Okay, I'll ask some more
Yeah.
questions. Thank
Yeah,
you
yeah.
so much.
You're so welcome.
All right, go ahead, Susan.
Hey, Susan.
Hi, Greg. Thanks. I'll keep it short because I know we're running out of time. I've got a person who's, thank you for saying hi. I have a person who's having a psychotic breakdown. In figuring it out, it looks like there was a bad mushroom trip. And my
Okay.
guess is that they blew the webbing.
Okay.
Um,
We know for sure that they took mushrooms, or
yes.
and how long ago was this, and what are
Uh,
the symptoms?
The mushroom trip was on a Wednesday. Her first psychotic breakdown was on a Friday.
Okay. And what are we calling a psychotic break?
She feels very unsafe in her body. She is feels disconnected from her body, from reality. My son, is her partner, and he keeps having to come home from work because she doesn't feel safe to drive. She doesn't feel safe to be alone. They went to the psych ER last night. So I'm just wondering, do I repair webs? I can, pranic healing, energy healing wise, I can, I've got some ideas of how to do that. But if you have any others, I would love to hear, but I know we're out of time, so.
Okay, so this is what I would do. The forehead, the back head, the front solar, the back solar, the Mingmen, the perineum, the soles of the feet, and then lastly the jaws. You're going. What's that?
Got it.
Okay. You can use energy healing and clean with electric violet on those spots, and then inhibit them with blue.
Okay.
And then essential oil wise, if she's willing,
She is not, so I would have to do it for her. She's not anything.
then just do what we said. Yeah, then
Okay.
just do what we said. Yeah.
She's nowhere near. Okay,
No,
perfect. I
get
got it.
you. Yeah, I get you. Yeah,
What can you say? We are all
Yeah.
on our own path.
yeah.
I
She
wrote it
just-
down.
She's her system is like she's hyper reactive. Like
Yes.
her hypersensitive, hyper reactive. Her Mingmen, her forehead are super overactivated, but there's agitation in those centers. All of those are tied to basal ganglia function. And so you go through and calm all that down, she'll be fine.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I just have to say, you used identical words. I had Donna look at her. You and Donna had mirror image conversations about hypersensitive,
Yeah, she's just
so-
hypersensitive, hyperreactive. Yeah.
Okay.
Hyperreactive and just like any sort of stimuli coming at her from the environment, including like light, sound, anything, is going to cause a reaction.
You have no idea how absolutely 100% dead on you are. Thank you. That
You're
was
so-
wonderful. Thank you so much, dear. I'll see you in your next Zoom meeting.
Okay.